So today we are going to be creating a graffiti-like initial, similar to the artist Adam Fujita, or also known as Adam Fu. As we're doing this, we're going to be focusing on space, the use of space on our piece of paper, contrast, and also repetition. So looking at some of his pieces of work and the materials that we'll need, you're going to need black paper, neon paper, pencil, chalk pastels. If you don't have chalk pastels, you could also use crayon or even oil pastels will work as well. And then you need some scissors and regular glue. So let's take a look at our artist that we're studying for this particular project. So looking at Adam's work is you're going to notice that he's an artist, but he's also a designer. He's been using graffiti as an art medium for 25 years. And he also holds an MFA, which is a Master's in Fine Arts in Product Design. He lives in Brooklyn, New York, and some of his most recent work features bright neon-like graffiti in public places, and it's made entirely out of layered spray paint. So this concept that looks like neon lights, but it's done with spray paint, is really unique and cool. These are just a few samplings of his work. He's got many, especially these images all came from his website, the adamkfujita.com. So you can always take a look at some of his products and his designs and so forth on there to get an idea of what others he's been commissioned to do as well. So let's learn about his process. We're going to take a look at this video here by Art Insider, where he's creating fake neon signs. And then we're also going to look at this video here by My Modern Net and go into a little bit more of his process as he's doing that too, just to get some ideas. So let's begin.
No, this isn't a neon sign. It's street art created in a way that tricks your eyes into believing it's glowing light. Adam Fujita, also known as Adam Fu, has mastered the art of layering very specific colors in order to turn regular spray paint into something a little more luminescent. And while figuring out the technique to create this look, he has also mastered how to manipulate the human eye into seeing an entirely different material. But how does he do it? All of his projects start on his iPad. He uses an illustration app called Procreate to play around with typography and lettering. Adam uses it to map out the placement and scale of the piece, according to the size of the wall the project will live on. Once that's all done, Adam preps the materials he'll need once he's on site. This means pulling all the colors he'll need and extra cans of those colors in case he runs out. For this mural, he has prepared 7 different colors in the yellow and orange shade range. Then it's time to take the design and tools to the site.
My work always begins small. It always begins on paper or a napkin or the iPad, but it's meant to be outdoors. You know, my work, it came from the street, and ideally it should be on the street. And so I think that having it in public, that's its most natural environment.
He starts by creating a rough outline for the lettering. Usually this is done with the darkest of the 7 shades. For this piece, it's a red-orange color. This next step is vital to creating a faux glow around the sign. He calls this dusting, and it creates the illusion of the glow that real neon light would have. Adam repeats this with a few layers of different colors in order to fully create this effect. Although neon light itself may appear to be only one color, our eyes actually perceive the glow as varying shades of the same color. Once he's happy with how the dusting looks, Adam begins working on the letters. The first layer he puts down is a dark, but still vibrant, yellow. This brings the letters back into focus. Then, Adam rewrites the same letters in black, but slightly off-center. It will create the illusion of a shadow.
It's not common though in neon signage. Neon would never cast a dark light out of the backside of itself. You know, it would cast a bright light. But what I realized was that black shadow, it draws so much contrast that it adds to this quality that maybe the letters are floating above the surface.
This trick of the eye is thanks to depth perception. which is the ability to see things in 3 dimensions and is how you judge how far away an object is. Adam goes back in with the same yellow as before to clean up the overlapping black lines. Then he brings in the lighter, brighter yellow shade. When doing this, the neon effect begins to come together. But it isn't until he adds that final white line down the middle of the letters that the sign really glows. This mimics the most illuminated part of neon lights, making it appear brighter than the rest. That harsh, bright center of the sign is what really grabs your attention.
Now that we have that and we're about to begin, this is the project that we're going to learn about. So we know that we're going to create our own artwork inspired by your initial. It could be your first initial, your last initial, your middle initial, or a nickname that initial. And you're going to learn about contrast. So you're going to choose a bright color, and then we're going to create a shadow that helps it stand out when it's against a black background. We're also going to be doing space repetition. So what that means is you're going to be able to learn how to repeat the shape, which is your letter, multiple times in a similar position to help give your artwork a sort of unified feel, so that sense of unity. So let's take a look at our process now, and let's get started. For today, we are going to be making our awesome neon initial letters today. It's a type of graffiti and typography. We're going to be focusing on space, contrast, and repetition. So you're going to need to have some neon paper, a black piece of paper, pencil. You could use chalk. You could also use paint. Either or to be able to create the different layers that we need to make it look like it's popping off. I'm using some oil pastels here, so you could use paint, oil pastels, crayons, color pencils, whatever you have to be able to create this start. So to begin, using your paper, and like I said, if you don't have a neon paper, you can just use regular paper and color it in neon colors or a bright color if you would like. So this resource here is from Deep Space Sparkle for their lettering, and what we're going to do first is start off with drawing our initial. So you could do a letter, your first name, last name, or even your one initial. So I'm going to look on here and I'm going to do H for Holland. How do we do this? Well, you can either do a straight one, normal like this, or you could try to create your own cursive version. And this is the trick that I do whenever I create my own and want to create a bubble letter. There's lots of ways to create bubble letters, but for me in particular, I have a way of drawing it first, and then we're going to do a bubble around it. So we're going to try to use this entire piece of paper in order to get that large, we don't want to have a tiny one, we want a large one. So I'm going to draw my H the way I like to draw my H, right? And I could just draw it simple like this. You can copy whatever this one is, but you can make your own version however you want. Now I realize it's not filling up the whole page as much as I would like, so I might extend it. Maybe I want to add like a cool little curve or something to it. And this is where you can give your own little artistic, difference and make it fun. Now that I have my letter, the next step is to do the bubble around it. So what I say about the bubble, and this is where it gets a little tricky, is you're going to follow around it and draw the bubble. Voila. So then you can go in and you have an option of erasing this line, or why erase it when you can just cut this out. So our next step is to grab our scissors. Now we're going to cut this out. Now that you have done it, what you can do is, if you wanted to, you could erase those lines. I know we always draw light until we get it right, but for the video I pressed a little harder, so it's harder to see. So you have the option of flipping it over and having it in a different direction, and maybe you like that, and it just gives it a little different effect. So if you did an S and it's, the opposite way, you can always turn it and flip it however way you want to, or have it cool. So I can have it either this way, or I can flip this over and have it that way. And I think for my artistic way, I think this looks kind of fun and different, something I normally wouldn't do. So what I want you to do now is we're going to trace our letter in the center, or actually a little off center on our paper here. So we're using 9 by 12 paper, and we have our 8.5 paper of like printer paper that's in bright colors. But if we did it on a larger paper, you could probably put this in the center. So I'm going to put it off center, and what we're going to do now is you're going to use your pencil again, and you're going to trace around your letter. So let's do that first. Don't worry if it's not exact. Probably in this video it's hard to see the silver tracing of the pencil, but I can see it rather well here. Okay. Once you're done, put that to the side, and I know it's harder to see in here but with the lighting, but you can kind of see the silver shimmer. The next thing is we have oil pastels out, and I want you to find a color that is similar to what we have but is a darker value. So remember, when we talk about value, we're looking at things that go from white all the way to black of a color. So the lightest all the way to the darkest of that color. And that's what we're looking for. So I'm going to choose, because I have a green paper, I'm going to choose a nice dark green. This is a lighter green, which would work well, but I'm really looking for a contrast, something that really stands out different. As you can see already, black paper in this bright neon color, there's a contrast. This is bright, this is dark, I want to find a medium. So using my oil pastel, and usually a chalk pastel is the best, but you could use crayon, and we're just going to quickly, lightly color it. If you used a chalk pastel, which I love to use too, you can blur it and like smudge it and make it really stand out. But I wanted to show you that you could also use an oil pastel. And once you do it, just kind of blur it a little bit outside the lines by just gently having it come out a little bit, and it just gives it a fuzzy look. If you're using a chalk, it's going to be really fuzzy, which is nice for what you would think of for spray painting, right? But you can always even use chalks that you use for outside. You could do this on your driveway if you wanted. You could use regular chalk, which is something that we'll do for on the top here. But I wanted to show you, if you were using chalk and you had it, like chalk pastel, you would draw it and then you would just kind of use your finger to smudge it out. So this is a little bit of a tougher because it's not a chalky pastel, it's just chalk. But you can see how it gives this, grainy, fuzzy look. And this is, in its own in between, but this is us practicing and learning. All right, so once we have this step down, and we created our dimension a little bit by tracing it, we are going to trace our letter one more time. So take your pencil again, and you're just kind of slightly moving it over. So here I had it on top. Now I'm going to slightly move it over, and you're going to trace it one more time. Wonderful. So now that I have it traced one more time, what I would do is I would use a black oil pastel or even a black crayon. So I'm trying to show that you can also do this at home, and I want to show you things that you can use. You can, if you are in a classroom, you could also use black paint and paint over this area, or black oil pastel or black crayon. So I'm going to get a black crayon and show you how to do that step. That we have our layer of our bright color or that medium color in between. We've got our black shadow. You're going to take your letter and you're going to place it where you can see a little of the black shadow, so it's covering some of the black shadow and it's covering some of the green. It's really hard to see in this video, I realize. With the lighting in here, it's hard, but I know you can do this, and I'll have some visual directions for us too as we're going through it. So, taking glue, we're going to glue this piece on. The last and final step is to take either a white pastel or some white chalk, and we're going to go over you could even use white paint too. You're going to go over just the center areas, and you can make it nice and bright. So take your time going through. Remember, if chalk gets dirty, you can just use a Kleenex and clean it up, and that way you won't end up with that messy mark on your paper. One other thing I wanted to say is you could always go back in and make this even fuzzier or bigger to take over if you wanted things to really pop and stand out a little bit more. It's up to you, however you feel about your piece. And I hope you enjoyed making your neon letters and making them pop a little bit off your page. I had fun making it with you.